Hi there. I had dinner last week with some former coworkers, people I had stayed close with after I retired early at 55 and worked with from the job I retired from. Our conversation is usually some mix of family health and how work is going for them. But the last couple of dinners, it kept drifting back to the same thing. Everything just feels out of control. Gas, groceries, home insurance, auto insurance, property taxes, health insurance, especially. And I want to be clear right now, this is not a political video. I'm not going there, and I'd ask that the comments don't either. What I'm describing in this video is something people across the political spectrum are feeling. And this dinner brought into focus for me something that I've been feeling for a while, a feeling and nagging question I never expected to take seriously. Is America becoming too expensive to retire in? And would I ever consider living somewhere else? Not necessarily because I have to, not because my retirement plan failed. It hasn't. And I want to be clear about that because I don't want this to come across as panic or doom. Financially, I'm not sitting here saying I have no choice, I have to leave. That is not my situation. But what I am saying is that the retirement I pictured is starting to look different from the retirement I'm actually living. When you're still working, rising costs are annoying. They're frustrating. They may even be stressful, but when you're retired or close to it, they feel different. They don't just hit your budget, they make you question everything. A higher grocery bill isn't just a higher grocery bill anymore, it's a reminder that your retirement plan is being tested. A bigger insurance bill is a reminder that some of the largest costs in retirement aren't fully under your control. A property tax increase is a reminder that even a paid off house isn't free. And health insurance before Medicare, that one deserves its own horror movie soundtrack. When you still have a paycheck coming in, there's at least some psychological comfort in knowing more money is arriving every couple of weeks. But once that paycheck stops, every recurring bill starts to feel a little different. It's not just that went up, it's how many more things are going to go up, and how much flexibility do I really have if they keep going up. When I was working toward early retirement, I thought carefully about my portfolio, withdrawal strategies, taxes, and whether I'd have enough. I thought about health insurance before Medicare. I thought about whether the market would cooperate. I thought about whether I'd miss work. What I didn't think enough about was the emotional weight of watching basic costs climb after I'd already stepped away from a paycheck. That part surprised me, and here's what makes this interesting. Financially, I don't need to move. I'm not sitting here saying I have no choice, but I am saying something I didn't expect to say out loud. I think about it more than I used to. I've caught myself watching YouTube videos on retiring abroad. So that curiosity is there, and it's there for a reason. It's because of the environment and feeling I have about America right now. And I think that's true for a lot of people right now. For me, this isn't just about making the math work, though I know that's a very real reason for others and a valid one. For me, it's about whether the life your money buys still feels like the life you expected. That's the piece that surprised me. Retirement confidence depends heavily on the environment around you, the cost environment, the healthcare environment, the insurance environment, the housing and property tax environment, and the general sense of, does this still feel sustainable? Those feelings have gotten louder for me. And that's something I don't think gets talked about enough in retirement planning. We talk about asset allocation, we talk about withdrawal rates, we talk about Social Security, we talk about Roth conversions, and all those things matter, but the environment around your retirement plan matters too. If the cost structure around you keeps shifting, it can chip away at your confidence, even when the spreadsheet still technically works. 10 or 15 years ago, retire abroad conjured up two types of people for me, the extremely adventurous or those who couldn't afford to stay. I think both still exist, of course, but that's no longer the whole picture. Now I'm seeing more financially stable people at least wondering about it, not always because they plan to do it, but because it functions as sort of an escape hatch, a way of asking, what if things here get worse? What if health insurance keeps getting harder? What if my retirement dollars could buy a better quality of life somewhere else? So, as I mentioned, we talk endlessly about things like asset allocation, Social Security, Roth conversions, withdrawal rates, all that stuff. But one of the most powerful decisions in retirement may actually simply be where you live. And that does not only mean moving abroad, it might be moving to a lower cost state, it might mean downsizing, it might mean renting instead of owning, it might mean moving closer to family, it might mean spending part of the year somewhere else. For some people, it may mean another country, but the broader point is that location is a retirement lever too. And I'm not going to pretend that moving, or especially moving abroad, is some magical solution where all your problems disappear and you can spend your mornings at a quiet European cafe. Though I do admit that does sound really, really nice. Every place has trade offs. You might lower your cost of living, but live in a smaller space. You might find cheaper healthcare, but have to navigate a different system. You might love the adventure, but miss your kids and family. You might escape some frustrations only to discover brand new ones with better scenery. Every country has problems. Every healthcare system has limits. Every beautiful retirement dream still has a utility bill, paperwork, and taxes. And that's why I don't want to romanticize this. Moving somewhere else is not just a spreadsheet decision. It's not just this country costs less, therefore it's better. You have to think about family, friends, familiarity, culture, language, medical care, legal residency, taxes, and whether you would actually enjoy your day to day life there after the vacation feeling wears off. The fact that more people are thinking about retiring abroad does tell us something, though. It tells us that retirement in America has become a bigger emotional burden, that health insurance can shape life decisions, and it tells us that retirement planning can't just be about hitting a number. Before retirement, it's easy to reduce everything to a number. Do I have enough? What's my withdrawal rate? What's my net worth? What's my spending target? What's my tax bracket? Those things matter, of course, but once you're actually retired, the question gets bigger. Do I feel secure? Do I feel free? Do I have choices? Can I handle surprises? Do I feel like I'm living somewhere that supports the retirement I wanted? That last question is the one I keep coming back to, and I don't have a final answer. I'm not packing boxes, I'm not calling a realtor, but I am paying attention. And I think that's part of responsible retirement planning. If you're 45, 50, 55, 60, or already retired, consider these not fearfully, not politically, but as planning questions. What expenses are rising faster than you expected? How dependent is your plan on staying exactly where you are? Would you ever move to a lower cost state? Would you ever downsize? Would you ever rent? Would you ever spend part of the year somewhere else? Would you ever consider another country? If the answer is absolutely not, that's fine, but it's still worth knowing because then your plan needs to account for staying put even as costs rise. That's a useful realization either way. The worst plan isn't the one where you decide to move or stay. The worst plan is the one where you assume nothing will change. And that's where I think a lot of retirement advice falls short. It gives you the math, but not always the lived experience. It tells you the average inflation assumption, but not what it feels like when you get three different bills that have drastically increased at the same time. It tells you healthcare is a line item, but not what it feels like when you actually pay those monthly premiums. It tells you to plan for long retirement, but not always how to think about the world you're retiring into. And the world many of us are retiring into feels different than the one we imagine, and different requires flexibility. I'm not currently planning to leave the United States, but I'm no longer dismissing the idea as something only other people do. I understand now why someone would look at costs, insurance, healthcare taxes, and the general mood in the country and say, maybe there's another way to do this. Retirement changes how you see things. When you're working, you're surviving the week. When you're retired, you have space to look around and ask, is this the life I actually want for the next 20 or 30 years or more? That question can be exciting. It can also be uncomfortable. But I think it's healthy. Retirement should be about more than preserving your money. It should be about preserving your quality of life. And if the cost or stress of where you live starts to chip away at that, it's worth asking whether better options exist. Maybe the answer is moving abroad. Maybe it's another state. Maybe it's downsizing. Maybe it's staying exactly where you are with an updated plan. All of those are valid. What's not valid is assuming the retirement you imagine still fits the world you're actually retiring into. That's where I am. Not panicked, not making a political statement, just being honest that the America I pictured retiring in doesn't feel exactly like the America I'm retired in. And I don't think I'm the only one feeling this. If this video resonated, please like the video and subscribe. It helps more people find these conversations. And in the comments, I'd love to hear from you, but let's keep it practical, not political. What cost has surprised you most? Groceries, insurance, healthcare, property taxes? And have you ever seriously considered moving somewhere else in retirement, another state or another country? I think a lot of us are having this conversation privately. Maybe it's time we started having it more openly. Because the goal is not to escape retirement in America. The goal is to build a retirement that still feels secure, enjoyable, and worth all the years that it took to get here. And if that requires us to think a little differently than we used to, then I think that's a conversation worth having. Before we wrap up, a few resources available on my Patreon, and the link is in the description. First, you can download my 12-step early retirement planning checklist, a practical guide covering everything from calculating your FIRE number to building a tax-efficient withdrawal strategy. Second, if you're on an ACA health plan or are planning to be if and when you retire, you can download my ebook, ACA Premium Shock Fix, 10 Ways to Pay Less for Marketplace Coverage All Year Long. This gives you a practical framework for legally lowering your ACA premiums by understanding and managing your MAGI, or modified adjusted gross income. And lastly, you can download my ACA MAGI Estimator. It's an Excel template you can use to estimate your MAGI for ACA health insurance. And you can also use it to keep track of your MAGI if you're currently on ACA health insurance to help stay within the income range needed to maintain subsidies. And if you want more, check out the paid membership tiers on my Patreon. Additional tools, ad-free and early podcast access, and a level where you can ask me your retirement questions directly. You can also find all my media at mikeupland.com. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, take care and make the most of today.